All right, Kiss Army, welcome to the KissFAQ podcast. Thank you for giving us your time today and letting us into your head. I hope we don't do any damage. This is a Kiss-related podcast by the board, for the board. We hope that you enjoy. All right, welcome to the KissFAQ podcast. I'm your host, Julian Gill. I did not do all my homework, so there is no banner at the bottom that says this is episode 548. Refocused.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. I've been slacking. Actually, no. Having to go through 15 songs on Hot in the Shade to talk about was a bit of a tough slog, I'm going to be honest. So it's going to be interesting how this conversation develops. I want to thank everyone who's joining us live, everyone who's checked out the episode that was done last week in my absence. I did not have a chance to watch that yet, guys. Been that busy since I got back from England. It's been fucking crazy, but there we go. Anyone bought any new Kiss-related shit this week, or am I the only one? Because obviously I was in England and I got to buy a magazine, a rock magazine, on the rack, which is really cool. And this has an Ace Frehley look back at 1988, I guess it was, or maybe I can't even remember because I haven't read it yet. But it's got that. It's got Wasp 40th anniversary of the debut album in there. It's got a review of the old, new, an additional reissue of the Warrior CD that's coming out as well. But it was cool. I was told that there's no record store in this town because this town is really small and hokey pokey, and you're not going to find anything in this town, Julian. Found a record store. It had some Kiss stuff in it as well, but I wasn't paying 20 quid for an Elder when I have like 19 copies of it still to get rid of. Nor was I buying the Tears Are Falling 12-inch. Because I just don't need it, and my luggage was really small. I did buy a Aerosmith jukebox 7-inch of Living on the Edge, but that was essentially it. So that was it. That was the only record store I found on the way. So anyone else?
Is there new Kiss-related shit to buy?
There's always Kiss-related shit to buy, Lonnie. Always. Now, should you be purchasing it? Well, opinions vary, of course. All right, no one bought anything. I'm disappointed in you all. Spend more money on crap.
Yeah.
Mark,
yes.
I know you've got something to show off this week, and it's always exciting when you get that in your hands, and we're not talking about rude stuff.
Yes.
So what you got?
So just for all those people who actually did purchase this, the Dark Monarchy CD, the new one is in. I just got them the other day, so I will be sending them out starting next week. I'll package them all up. Thank you for everybody who did show your support and grab it. It turned out really good. We're very happy with it. Again, thank you to Steve, who did all the artwork for it. He always does a fantastic job with this stuff. He does all the layouts and the booklets and blah, 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 blah. So here it is in all its glory. And if you haven't got a copy, you can always find it on Bandcamp under the Dark Monarchy. And thank you to everybody who has ordered their copy, and it will be in your mailboxes sooner than later. Thank you very much.
That was very quick. Good lad. There we go. All right, so that leaves us time to get into the topic of the day. 35 years of Hot in the Shade. For any Kiss album that reaches an anniversary point, it's good to take a step back and reevaluate it. And now that we've got this new methodology, Julian math, right, Daniel? For evaluating songs and just doing the rankings on the album, it's nice to, is it nice? Let's get everyone's impressions from revisiting Hot in the Shade this week. I got to start with Lonnie. Lonnie, did you enjoy revisiting this album?
Yes and no. Some yes, a lot of no. I guess you could say. There are some good songs on it, but there's a lot of crap, and I'm sure we're all gonna echo the same thing. That and it came out at a time where all of a sudden we could put more a larger amount of songs on the album thanks to the rise of popularity of CDs. So I think we're going to echo a sentiment that more is not always better. That, you can, Destroyer, Mark, is like 35 minutes long. And it's like,
even that's painful.
but this is long and it's terrible. So that's what she said.
Ooh.
What did you guys think?
Lottie with the words of wisdom that longer is not always better. There we go. All right. That's your gem for the day. Since Lottie was lobbing a little bit of a grenade there at Mark, how was your revisitation of Hot in the Shade, and how did you consume it? Did you go for a walk and put it on, or like Lonnie, did you run away from it?
At first I was a little dreading it. I brought it in the car with me, which is usually my place I like to listen to stuff in its entirety. And being that it's a pretty long record, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do it in one sitting, but I was able to do it. But I agree with Lonnie with this whole thing about why they made it so long, an album. I don't understand. I mean, obviously the advent of CDs made it, but the thing that I just wanted to say really quickly is that
Canadian network.
It's frozen up north already.
Sounds kind of funny. Sorry, Mark. You sound. There's a problem with your internet.
He's not saying it real quick.
Is he reciting the alphabet of what is A, B, C?
That might be the best explanation I've ever heard about
He's still going.
G, H, I. Yay, K. Good, Mark.
All right. So I'm gonna move on, Daniel.
Let's move on from the Canadian internet. Yeah, well, the big problem you kind of mentioned it is that this is actually the first time Kiss released an album when CD was the main thing. Crazy Nights, they still were thinking LP, starting off the B-side in a good way, and not too long of a record. This time around, they didn't have any clue what to do. They just put everything on the record, and that's the problem. So for me, it was kind of a struggle to get through all of this, especially since the B-side, or whatever you call it when it's a CD, I think there's a lot of filler on that side, but there's a few gems as well.
Well, I just told Mark that his network went to hell. Ken, what about you for re-listening to it? Because next question, of course, is going to be back in the day. So, how did you consume it? Which copy of your album did you play, and how did you consume it? Did you manage to do it in one sitting?
This time I did one sitting. I did a digital this time from my CD basically. Yeah, it's long. I don't know why I know Lonnie said about the CD, and that is true. Everyone's using more songs, and albums are almost done as far as vinyl. Maybe a couple years later, they pretty much stopped pressing albums. So yeah, it's a little too long. They crammed a bunch of stuff on there. I think a lot of it's unfinished. They should have just kept it down to the normal around 10 songs or so. But we got what we got. And I don't think it's really a true finished album. I think they rushed it. They didn't take the time to really put the effort in to finish some of these things, and they could have made it a better album. Just making it shorter would have been a better album. I think more, cohesive, or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, it was nice to, at the time, for it to come out. It was like you're happy about it, but there were some some material there is just, some of it's really lacking as far as Kiss goes.
Yeah, it was interesting going back to revisit it this week. I don't play vinyl anymore. I can't be arsed to go to that much effort to listen to music, so it's all digital. What's queued up in my storage? I threw it on there. I threw on some demos to compare, with what was and what became, and it didn't hurt my feelings. I still like the songs that I liked back in the day.
Yeah.
I still always think back to that original reaction to the album in 1989, and just to start that conversation of what did you think about the album back when it was released or when you first got it, whichever is the case. 1989, it comes out in October, obviously. I'm living in Singapore at the time, and I don't recall whether I got it on LP there. I know I certainly got a cassette copy of it when I was in England that December. And, Frelly's Trouble Walking was out at the same time. So it was like a double banger for me, getting both of the albums. All of the singles, there was a 10-inch picture disc in the UK, and I can't remember if I got that at that time or whether that was on another visit. There were so many. There were singles for Hide Your Heart, and I think it was red vinyl. So there was a lot of stuff to collect, and there was also all of the stuff in the market still from Crazy Nights in the UK. So it was really exciting to have all of this material, all of this stuff. I was really confused by why Hot in the Shade was on both albums. Hide Your Heart was on both albums. That was kind of weird, but there was a lot of magazine coverage of the groups there. It was actually an exciting time. And then to take it back to Singapore, where, obviously I wasn't in a happy place living out there. I danced along to Smashes, Thrashes, and Hits in Singapore. So Hot in the Shade was a real improvement on that track.
That's good.
There were some good songs on it. And there were some really bad songs on it. But what I think I liked about it the most in 1989 was there was a lot of songs to pick and choose from. And almost immediately, the best of them went into, a mixtape to cut out all the shit. And it also became my first Kiss CD that I bought. So, from that perspective, where I was in 1989, listening to Guns N' Roses, In Excess, The Cult, Sonic Temple, all that Zodiac Mind War, Rock City Angels, all of that stuff, and Cinderella, all of that stuff, it fit in with that ecosystem, or the better material on it certainly did. Ken, 1989, old school Kiss fan gets a new Kiss album after suffering from Crazy Nights and its pop panderings. Here's a much more stripped back, version of Kiss. What was it doing for you at that time?
Well, again, every time a new Kiss album, it's always an exciting time, and you're always hoping for the best, and usually expect pretty solid stuff. After Crazy Nights, it was nice at least to get to more of a not so polished album, not so slick, more back to more rocking, maybe not as heavy or gritty, so heavy as far as being kind of a gritty kind of heaviness to it. But it was always cool getting a new album, and then that would stay in either my CD player or on my turntable for probably a good length of time with other music at that time period. And then after that, you go back to your favorite Kiss stuff and start playing that again, because it's not the best stuff that they did. So.
All right, Mark, we're going to go back to you since your audio bit the big one the moment you started talking. So let's see if it will stick around for this answer.
Well, I don't even know what the question was. I missed it completely. So
you did? Oh, that's a shame. All right, next. No, Mark, it was going back to 1989. what was your reaction as a Kiss fan to Hot in the Shade with all that material, and where you were at as a Kiss fan when you first heard it?
I never listened to this when it came out in '89. I was totally, completely elsewhere with music at this time. Kiss was not really on my radar at this point. I was listening to a lot of different things at this time, but when I did get back to it and listen to it, it wasn't that impressive. I mean, there was other records I was listening to already at that time. I think honestly I had listened to Revenge, and then I went back to this one later, right? So it seemed like a huge step backwards, right? When you listen to it sonically and stuff like that. So
Sure.
yeah, it wasn't very impressive. I mean, there are some songs on here that are good, but there's a lot of filler on this record, man, a lot.
Fair enough. Lonnie, how about you as one of the younger fans, I guess?
Well, I think I missed Hot in the Shade really when it came out. I mean, it came out in '89,
Yeah.
so I'm like 9 or 10 years old, so I'm really not
Yeah.
plugged in to what the hell's going on. Ken laughed at the fact I was 9 or 10 years old when it came out. But I did get, my fandom really when the new Heights of Revenge came out, and a friend of ours said, well, Hot in the Shade is actually better than Revenge. And and my brother's like 16, I guess, at the time, and he's like, oh, really? So he went and got Hot in the Shade then, and we're listening to it, and we're like, no, it's not. What is this guy talking about?
Oh, no.
So he had it, and then I went and got my copy of it probably a couple years later because I wasn't that impressed. So I probably got it on CD. I don't know, mid '90s, I guess. A couple years later.
Okay.
But and going back and listening to it, I'm like, I think my reaction to it, listening to it this week, is kind of my same reaction listening to it back then. Where, okay, well, Rise to It, that's pretty good, and Forever, that's pretty good, and Hide Your Heart, that's pretty good, and well, King of Hearts, that's pretty bad, and I think my reaction to it is pretty much the same now as it was then. The good songs are good, and the bad songs really stick out.
All right, Daniel, go back to 1989, please.
Yeah, news traveled real slow over here when it came to Kiss back in the late 80s. So I think I missed it as well, even though I was a Kiss fan. I remember getting Animalize, Asylum, and Crazy Nights, and remembering being disappointed when listening to Crazy Nights. But then there's a famous mail order magazine where you buy stuff when you live in the woods like I do. You buy it on mail order from a particular company, and I went through their booklet, so to speak, and then I saw it. I think this was 1990, and what, Kiss has an album that I haven't got, Hot in the Shade. So I ordered it, and we all at school. This was high school, so we all ordered in order to make the post. What do you say? The cost for sending the stuff lower for all of us. So we had one guy going around, and we all bought CDs, and I was the only one buying Hot in the Shade, I remember. But I bought it, and I didn't have to pay a lot of postage,
right.
postage, yeah. So and when I got it, I was really, really, really disappointed. Actually, the one song that stood out after the first listen was Julian's favorite.
Rise Your Heart?
Yeah, exactly.
Rise Your Heart.
Read My Body was the one that I remembered after the first listening. Oh, that was kind of a cool riff, but it didn't last. So I was really disappointed listening to the album for the first time.
All right, before we get into the overview of the album, the way that we're handling this conversation today, just for the sake of time, to reduce the 15 songs, we're going to axe 5 of them straight from the start of the show, just so that we don't have to focus in on them anymore. And from a strictly a points basis, the least favorite 5 songs on this album, and we'll just do a quick roundtable on these before getting into the album's production and all those metrics, are Boomerang is actually this group's least favorite song on Hot in the Shade,
surprise.
scoring 17.5 points added up with Julian math. Second, Read My Body.
Okay.
It's actually liked a little bit more than Boomerang with 28 points. I mean, go figure. You know, there you go. You Love Me to Hate You. It gets the elbow. 37.5 points. Cadillac Dreams. Shame on You All. Gets the axe. It's 48.5. And
Stinker.
also Shame on You All. Prisoner of Love. On 53 points. So that's the way the cookie crumbles. And when you've opened your cookies, Daniel, Boomerang, Read My Body, You Love Me to Hate You, Cadillac Dreams, Prisoner of Love. Do you have any comments on those songs before they're consigned to the scrap heap of history for the rest of this show?
I do. They all suck. They're terrible. They're all brutal. I mean, honestly, the lyrics. I mean, I purposefully made sure I went through the lyrics, and the lyrics are terrible. I mean, Cadillac Dreams is one of the most horrendously written songs, musically and lyrically. It's terrible. I mean, Prisoner of Love too. It's very tacky. Like a lot of these songs are just not well. I mean, the music I can understand. Sometimes the music is a little tacky in this time period, so I can kind of excuse a bit of that. But I mean, come on, like Read My Body with that really bad Santana percussion at the beginning. Like, no, this is Kiss. This is not Santana. Come on, I don't like those congos and bongos and all this stuff. Like, and the lyrics. The lyrics with it are just terrible. So that's I'll keep it short.
Agreed.
That's what I think.
Mark hates a good
I think Mark nailed it, because a lot of the lyrics, even though English is my second language, it's impossible to understand some of the stuff that they wrote and why they did it and what the goal was. And as Ken said previously, it feels at times as an unfinished product. They should have axed these 5 songs and focused on the rest. And it's incredible to think that they sounded so great just a few years later on Revenge, while they put out this piece of crap a few years earlier. I mean, compared to Revenge, it's such a difference. So I agree with Mark. Just axe these songs and, bury them somewhere in the desert.
Okay, Ken, please inject some common sense into this conversation, because my feelings are very hurt by these guys right now.
Wow.
Well, a couple of them make sense for sure. Definitely Boomerang and You Love Me to Hate You. I never liked that one. King of Hearts, I never liked that either. But and Read My Body. So they're all kind of there. Cadillac Dreams is not bad. Yeah, the lyrics are...
It's a Gene song.
Kind of screwy. Yeah. And but Prisoner of Love is not that bad, really. I think it's still a good song, but it's not one of his best. What are you gonna say? It's really part of the overall album where pickings are slim on it. I think that's the problem. So,
Lonnie.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. The lyrics is what really drives it home for some of these songs, that they're just so bad. I mean, well, and I guess Boomerang is just awful from all perspective. That is. I mean, it's just a terrible song, no matter how you look at it. And actually, Read My Body gets a lot of crap, but actually the lyrics are so bad. The song's actually a little bit fun sometimes when you listen to it. It's
when you're running.
I agree. It's kind of a fun riff as well.
It's so bad. It reminds me of Let's Put the X in Sex, because it's so cringy and so bad that you almost kind of like it a little bit because it is so cheesy. Yeah. But the the Prisoner of Love and Cadillac Dreams. Like Julian said, he was surprised on at least one of these that it got the axe, but those two are bad too. I mean, they're just.
Oh yeah.
The when I was 17. I'm like, I mean, it sounds like a high school kid's writing the song. I mean, not just. I mean, the lyrics are just like are so elementary. They're so bad. So I'm glad we don't have to spend a whole lot of time talking about this.
Stream of consciousness.
You really think so? Because I get to comment now, Lonnie, and
Okay,
I'm gonna have to
go
spend
ahead,
a little
Julian.
bit of. Okay.
Okay.
Cadillac Dreams. Cadillac Dreams is a guilty pleasure of mine. Maybe it's because I get the immigrant angle of dreaming for bigger things that maybe is coming out of Gene's sentimentality. I would also say that any of those three Gene songs are better than his contributions to Animalize and possibly Asylum. But I like Cadillac Dreams, and I'm sorry. It's a guilty pleasure. It's dumb. It's fun. And I can see Gene's head bobbing, along singing to this song. Prisoner of Love, I think, has a really cool swing. I think there's some great guitar work on it. I think it's the daddy of Domino. One more album, he kind of gets into that direction.
That's stretching a bit.
Bastard son of Domino.
Well, maybe, but this is a podcast full of pontifications. Read My Body, I'm not defending because it's a shit sandwich. Boomerang is terrible. I really can't believe it. And You Love Me to Hate You, I'm glad that one's gone because Joan Jett did it better. It's basically the same fucking song that Joan did. I can't even remember the name of the album off the top of my head, but I was listening to that a lot. All right, let's get into the album overall. For each of these, categories, we look at the album according to its production, its cohesiveness. I got to say that with a straight face for this album. Cover art and packaging, single selection, and taste. So we add the first 5 of those and multiply it by taste to get a score for it. Let's start with Daniel because he barely gave this fucker any points when it comes to these. So you don't like this album very much, do you, Daniel? And explain your scores for each one of those categories.
I don't remember the categories. What did you say?
Production,
Production, bad as hell. Cohesiveness, terrible. What else do you have?
Cover art.
Cover art, the worst cover ever on a Kiss record. Singles. Singles might get a bit of a higher score, but the Hide Your Heart being, was that the lead-off single?
No, it was. It was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Single. And Hide Your Heart had already been released, I think, by a few other artists.
Yeah.
Hadn't it? Yeah. You had Ace Frehley's version as well, and you had Bonnie Tyler, Molly Hatchet, and I think another one as well.
Robin Beck.
Robin Beck, that's the one. Yeah. So, I mean, releasing a song that is appearing on several albums, what a terrible idea. I would have gone for something like Betrayed, something tougher, something harder, a Gene song like Unholy they did a few years later. I think that's a cool song. Hide Your Heart was, I guess Paul Stanley sold it to a few artists, and then he suddenly came to he understood that this is a pretty good song. Maybe we should release it as well. But actually, it was a leftover from Crazy Nights, I think. I think it was demoed for Crazy Nights, and it didn't make the record, so it was a leftover. No, I would have liked to see Betrayed or something like that being a single with a heavy Kiss sound. But unfortunately, Rise to It was another single. I don't care for that song that much. I think it's just... middle of the road. And of course they nailed it with Forever, but that's not my style of music. But it was good that became such a hit. Otherwise we wouldn't have seen that great live show, I think, because that was the thing that saved the tour. So thank you Forever, because the tour was something else. Maybe the greatest Kiss. Yep, I think the
tour was good.
The Hot in the Shade tour was the best tour Kiss did out of makeup.
No, I mean, you had the last category was taste out of 3.
Taste. Well, sounds like shit. So I give it 1. I hope I did.
All right, Mark, let's get you all your mics working.
Okay, well, production, I gave it 2.5 out of 5. Obviously, we've talked about this 1,000 times. It sounds more like demos than proper, a proper album production. But because of that, though, I gave cohesiveness 4 out of 5 because all of them sound like that. It is cohesive in that. If you think of what cohesive means, it means that it gels together. There's nothing about these songs that stick out like a thumb from one another. They all sound the same. They all have that same
I
sort
don't
of
really agree.
production.
If you listen to Forever, I think Forever sounds pretty good. I think they did something more for Forever.
Yeah.
But that's one song. I mean, one song out of like 15, So, so the cohesiveness is there. I mean, if I would have said 5 out of 5, then yeah, okay, you could have said Forever, right? But I didn't. I said 4, right? So I still think that it's pretty well constructed in that sense, but that's about it. Cover art is bad. I gave it a 2 out of 5. And singles, I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 because I think that the singles were the best songs they could have got from this record. I mean, what else are you going to put out as singles? I mean, Hide Your Heart was good. Out of all the versions that are out, this one is still my favorite version of that. I still like it over Aces and all the other ones better. While Rise to It is not exactly my favorite song in the world, but I think it was good for the time period. At this time, Cinderella was hot with Long Cold Winter, has that kind of bluesy Cinderella feel to it, this song. So it fit in fine, and it was a good song. In the video, everybody was talking about it because of the makeup in the video. So it was a good idea, that video, I think, for that single. And Forever, as we just said, was a great song. It saved the whole record and saved the tour. And, I still like that song. It's always been one of my favorites from the record, even though it is a ballad.
Paper hit.
Oh, and taste, I gave it a 2. Sorry.
Yeah, production-wise, it's just I gave it a 2 because it's not very good. I mean, you can hear the demo feel to all of them. It's not, it doesn't really, really feel finished. So I gave it a low score of a 2. But I agree with Mark. I gave it cohesiveness of a 4 because it all kind of sounds like kind of crappy production all the way around. So I gave it a 4 because outside of Forever, and I agree with Mark, outside of Forever, which I think they polished up, the rest of it just sounds just kind of bland all the way around. So cohesiveness, it doesn't jump around very, very much from one style to another. It just kind of sounds just kind of bland. So I agree. Cover art, I gave it a 3. I probably should have gave it a 2 because it is boring and crappy. A Sphinx with sunglasses on. I mean, it kind of feels like a very elementary, just like a lot of the lyrics, basically. Like looks like a kid bored in class, and I draw a Sphinx with the sunglasses on it. Hey, let's make that the album cover. And then the back is just I don't even know what that is. And I probably should have gave it a 2 and not a 3. And the single selection, I agree. I gave it a 4 because, well, there's not much to choose from. So I think the singles they selected are the obvious singles from the album, because there's a couple of good, like I said at the beginning, there's a couple of good songs, and then there's a lot of crap. And taste, I just gave it a 2, just middle of the road, because I could have gave it a 1 that I don't like it, but I gave it a 2 because there's some good stuff on it. So, but there's not a lot.
All right, Ken.
Yeah. Production for me is not, to me it's laziness. So I give it a 1 out of 5. I really nixed
That's
it.
correct.
I think they should have had someone else again, other than Paul and Gene producing the thing, because I would have rather had Nevison back than them producing this one. But anyway, so that was low. Cohesiveness, I gave a 3. Hold on while I cough. Sorry about that.
Do you have the correct spreadsheet?
Blow out your ears. Yes, I got the. I feel like I have the correct
That's
spreadsheet
good.
this time.
That's
Like,
good.
unlike the last album we did like this. So cohesiveness, I gave a 3. I think, yeah, the demos all sound the same quality, but I think the song selection is and the arrangement of songs is just doesn't make sense to me. Boomerang stands out at the end, just like it's like what? Why is that even there?
A sore
It
thumb.
doesn't even make sense. So I give it that. Cover art, again, here we go. I gave it a 2 because again, it was lazy. It's lazy cover art. They just threw some sunglasses on it. You know, if AI was back then, it would have been could have done a lot better, right? You know, Julian knows because we were doing some AI stuff with this.
Ken's cover is way
Well,
better.
My
than
cover
Kiss's.
is
Yeah.
my
Yeah, your
with
cover was
AI
great.
is easily better. They could have done a lot better with that. Maybe they should have had the image on the back and on the front or something different. Then if we go into the single selection, I don't like the single selections or the way they did it. I think the best song was really Forever. They should have just put that out first, and maybe it would
Never
have
lead with a
saved,
single.
the
Not with
album.
a ballad. Sorry,
Well, sometimes that's not always true, but
not if you're a
uh,
rock band.
I think, well, you got to do what you got to do sometimes. But hide your heart. Yeah, I could see it. But yeah, I agree with Daniel about Betrayed. Definitely, I think they should have put that out as one of them. Again, it was Paul kind of thing as usual. And then my taste is a 2 because it is Kiss. What are you going to say? So it's the middle of the road on that thing. So I had a pretty low score on that one. Probably going to be, it could be my lowest score of all albums that I'm going to rank. It's 16, which is not good.
Yeah. This is a tough album in terms of when you stack it up against all the other albums, and we'll have to do a lot more refocus to, come up with scores to do that. But metric wise, Mark gave this 26 out of 60, Ken 16 out of 60, Daniel 7 out of 60,
Oh my God.
That sounds
I
about
was
right.
bad.
Lottie
sounds about
26 out of 60, and I gave it 18 out of 60. Production is a 2. For glorified demos, it's not as bad as it could be, and I've heard some of the demos from this album, and these songs sound way better than the demos did. Cohesiveness, I gave it a 1 because it's a blender full of different songs. There's no unifying theme between
That's
any of
just my
this
thought as
material.
well. Yeah.
It's just all thrown against the wall, and these are the 15 that stuck. Whereas a song like Something Wicked This Way Comes, which was also supposed to be on the album at one point, doesn't make it. And that's a damn sight better song than quite a few of the other ones, like Boomerang. Cover art packaging, I give it a 2. I mean, what exactly is it? There's no prominent logo, and they had to use that hype sticker. Ken, you had the LP. Hold that up again. They've had to put a fucking hype sticker on it with the big Kiss logo to make it obvious again that it's a Kiss album. Because what the fuck is it otherwise? What's its identity? What the hell is Hot in the Shade? I mean, that's just dumb. That's like saying
Very small
in the cold volcanoes. What the hell? Hot in the Shade. So it doesn't make any sense, and I'd have to go check out Wallach's. I think Wallach did that with Claudio. I can't remember. I'd love to know what the fuck. Actually, all right. So single selection.
I don't think he did that one, did he?
No, he may not have, and that might be the problem with it.
Yeah.
You have the stupid hands in
Never thought of
Smashes, and then you've got a sphincter with glasses. Yeah.
Sphincter
So
in hands.
singles, I give it a 4 because again, it is the best of the lot. They're not going to release, Read My Body as a single. That's clearly not what it is. They don't have anything like Unholy to go to for this, not of that power. I think Hide Your Heart is probably the best of the lot as the lead-off single, though it could easily be Rise to It because, once you get rid of that Bad Seamstress Blues intro to it, which is clearly a rip on Long Cold Winter and what Cinderella was doing. The video's cool. The makeup's just a cop-out. I don't like the makeup in that single. because it was just the whole conversation of a reunion happening around the time. It was just confusing, and it was almost like admitting defeat for Unmasked Kiss. It was like, all right, we give up. We'll put the fucking makeup back on and test the waters and see what the reaction is. It was almost like they were throwing in the towel to me at the time of that. And then taste, 1 point, you don't like it. 2 points, meh. It's like whatever. And 3 points, you love it or like it. And we don't have a lot of ways to go on this one. I don't hate it because, again, it has a story within my personal history, but it's just like meh. It's like there's nothing that really stands out. If I'm doing a greatest hits collection from the 80s, it's a struggle to justify any of these songs making it other than those that were just released as a single. Therefore, they have to be on it. So that's it. Sorry, I don't want to be too long-winded. Let's get into the remaining songs that we haven't culled. And the lead-off track I've already kind of bashed a little bit because of that intro. But come on. Kiss's originality at this point is following other people rather than leading. Let's start with Ken, who gave Rise to It a whopping 21 points.
Yeah, it's a good lead-off song. I mean, that's probably the best choice to pick out of all the songs to be the lead-off. So they did that right. So lyrics, middle of the road, they're decent. Melody, I gave it a 4 out of 5, and a taste. My taste, I gave it a 3 out of 3. So because that's the Kiss kind of song I want to hear. At least again coming from Paul, it's what it should, what Kiss should be really. So it's a really good song. So 21, pretty good score.
Mark, I'm leaving this comment up until you roll your eyes.
They needed Ezrin to come back to get them. Well, maybe they needed him, but just like when the earlier comment about getting Nevison and that, they would have got none of them back because they didn't want to spend any money, which is very evident on this record.
But they did get Vinnie Poncia back,
writing,
who helped out a lot with the writing on this, and he was obviously a very pop-oriented writer. So it's weird. It's like you get Vinnie back. And you don't have him produce because you're saving money because you're basically broke. Because Crazy Nights was a failure. Mark, Rise to It. Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I gave it a 21, I think, as well. So, lyrics. When I think about the lyrics this time around, I thought about what was out at the time and the kind of albums that were out at the time, and the lyrics seemed very much on par with some of the things that were out at that time. Those sort of, the Cinderellas, the White Snakes, and all those kind of other albums and stuff, that they were all kind of this kind of vein of songwriting. So there's nothing, too cringy on this song, at least, right? Musically, I thought it was pretty good. It was, average, about as we said, probably more of the stronger material on the album. The one thing they did is smart on this record is they front loaded it with all the best stuff near the beginning and left all the terrible stuff near the end. So that was smart, and Rise to It is probably the best opener that they had. So I gave that a 3.5. I gave Taste 3 because I do like this song. Overall on this record, I think it's one of my more favorite songs.
Yeah, Lonnie, you also gave this one 21 points with Ken and Mark. What do you like about it?
I gave it 21. I mean, I think the lyrics are fun. It's a good Kiss, tongue-in-cheek lyrics, which is very where they were at the time. Melody, it's a type of song that kind of sticks in your head a little bit. Taste, it's good. I gave it a 3. I enjoy it, and there are going to be plenty of songs we're going to go through where I'm not going to have the same sentiment, but it's a good song, and the opening with the acoustic is just bad. It's such an obvious ripoff of what Cinderella did. It's so stupid. Like really, like, you guys are so unoriginal at this point in time. So, but it's a good song. And I agree with Julian. I think the makeup thing was such a reach and just such a bad look that, like, almost like admitting that we kind of got this wrong for where we're at right now from where we actually should be doing. So, but it's a good song. I enjoy it.
but artistically, that video is pretty cool on the sound stage. That performance stuff, that's a really cool sequence. Once you take out the makeup rubbish,
Outside of the very beginning of it, yeah.
yeah, and there's two versions of it, one in black and white, one in color. So it's kind of neat. They edited out a lot of the extras in it for some reason with the later version. So, Daniel, you are not a fan of this opening track on this album. Why not? What doesn't work for you with it?
Well, because since I became a fan in '85, the open track was always, unbelievably good. You had King of the not King of the Nighttime World, King of the Mountain. I've had enough into the fire, Exciter, Crazy Crazy Nights, and then this song. For me, this is the worst opener on any '80s Kiss album by far, by a mile actually. So just the disappointment that I felt when I put this on the turntable. I never was able to come back from that. I was so disappointed hearing this, and that horrible acoustic guitar starting off the song. And then just a few years later, you got Unholy as an opening song, which is awesome. So this was a real mistake from Kiss. This was no way to open a record. They should have opened with something else. Unfortunately, they don't have a lot to choose from, so I kind of understand why they.
There's no other song to pick.
But and I think the chorus is so silly, pretty boring. So I was so disappointed hearing this because for me, Kiss was always, the first song is always awesome, Creatures of Night and onwards. So I don't know what they were thinking back in '89, but this was a failure, and it was just a sign of things to come later on the record. So it's the worst opening Kiss song for a long, long time. So I don't think I gave it a lot of points.
Yeah, I was digging obviously the Cinderella album around this time, so it didn't bother me as such within that context. It's only later that I've decided that I don't like that intro, acoustic or guitar bit, and they use that in concert as well to kind of pontificate that. Yeah, we're from New York City, but we know all about the blues too, and it just became a lame rap.
Yeah.
No, you're shredders and you're hard rock. It was not, but I can understand it. It was at least trying to do something different. This is a great opening track for me. And I hadn't looked at it through Daniel's optics, and that's a really good observation, Daniel. But I like it. I think it's got a good vibe, a nice pulse, but it certainly is not what the rest of the non-makeup albums had provided in terms of an opening. But I think they're trying to set the tone for a good kind of more blues rock based album rather than heavy metal. And that's kind of they're trying to set the tone here, because a lot of this stuff is not shredding on this album. There isn't highly developed lead guitar work where Bruce is let loose like he had been on Crazy Nights and Asylum. His guitar playing in many places on this album is far more restrained and playing in a different kind of style than that which he then obviously dials up to 10 for Revenge. But Crazy Nights and Revenge have a very similar lead guitar dynamic for me, and this one does not. So it's a decent song. I actually gave it more points than all of you, because I have happy memories of this song. Let's move on to Betrayed. Actually manages to stay in this. I'll get mine out of the way quickly because I gave this 8 points. I just think you open up a rise to it and then you go to Betrayed and it's like clunk. It's like your clutch breaks just as you're starting to accelerate. It's not as dire as No 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 was in studio form. And other than the shitty lyrics, I like it musically, but it is not a good song. Daniel, you do like this song.
Hell yeah. The shit lyrics. I think this is the best Gene lyric on this album. I like it. It somewhat reminds me of Kiss songs where you're feeling, you got the power, you need to do something, you need to get back at the ones that don't treat you well, stand up for yourself, so to speak. Life's a bitch, what the hell, get back at it. So I kind of like the lyrics. And you have to understand that we measure Gene's lyrics a little bit differently than we do other artists' lyrics. So for Gene, I think this is a success when it comes to the lyrics. He hasn't just thrown in a lot of phrases that he found, on the internet. Oh, not the internet back then, but in a book, or he didn't use old film titles for naming the song and so on. So I think the lyrics are really good for Gene, and it's a heavy song. For me, it's the heaviest song. Well, I don't know what to say about Boomerang, but they try to make Boomerang a heavy song, but they fail. It just sounds strange and bad. Betrayed is still a cool song. They tried it out. I know they played it at the Stony Pony, I think, at the club when they did
Stone
a
Pony.
few. Yeah, Stone Pony. Yeah, they did a few club shows, and they tried it out 1 or 2 times in the beginning of the tour. It didn't work, so they scrapped it. But for me, this is the best Gene song on the album, and I like it quite a lot.
I need some emotional support. Lonnie, you're also not a big fan of this one.
I am not.
You guys are crazy.
I think
Yep.
it just follows a formula way too much. That okay, well, we're gonna open with a Paul song, and well, I guess we got to have a Gene song next, and well, there's not much Gene song to choose from, so here's this. And I gave the lyrics a 2. I'm going to say this probably a lot as we go, but it's just lazy and boring. And I agree with Julian. I gave the melody a 3, where I think the melody is a little above average. It's decent, but the lyrics ruin it for me. So my taste is a 2 on it also. And the song just ends up with 10 points because I can't just sit here and I can't say, oh yeah, well it's middle of the road. I gave it a 2 for taste. I could have given it a 1 but I can't give it a 3 because I really enjoy it, because I don't. And the lyrics aren't good, so it just ends up at a 10. And a lot of these songs are gonna kind of go down the same road.
Lonnie, life's a bitch. Don't feel.
Well, this song sucks. I don't know what to tell you.
This song's a bitch, But hey, at least we didn't give it 1s, because there are songs on this album that are worthy of a 1. Ken, you were wearing red tinted glasses for this one, clearly.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with Daniel on it. Daniel, I agree that it's a little bit better lyrics than normal for Gene. So it gets up. He gets a 4 out of 5 on that, just for doing a little better with that, instead of those other cliches that he does. Melody, I think, is pretty good, 3. And my taste is, it sounds like a really good Gene song, and so it's a 3 out of 3 on that. So I give it a 21. I think it's one of the better songs, at least for Gene, on this album. So maybe, I guess I think I ranked it as my favorite Gene song on the album. So it's a good one.
Doesn't say much on this album, but there you go. All right, so Mark, you're kind of middle of the road, tending to positive on this one.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I would have thought that I would have hated this song, but it's kind of in the middle for me. Musically, it's okay. It's pretty good. I gave it a 3. And look, lyrically, Gene has never been good. Okay, and the thing is, I'm going to say that on this record, it is probably one of his more stronger lyrics. But that's not saying much. Because, I mean, listen to this. I mean, you pay your taxes, you pay the rent until you haven't got a cent. That's terrible.
Perfect.
Okay, terrible lyrics.
Good rhyming.
Well, okay, but hang on. First of all, he rhymes there, but then he goes to the chorus where it's like, betrayed, yeah, life's a bitch, so you just don't feel. There's no rhyme there at all. Terrible lyrics there. So, but overall, I think lyrically it is probably one of his better ones on this record, which kind of, gives you kind of a warning ahead of time for what's to come lyrically, right? So, but I gave that a 3, and I gave it 3 down the line. So I gave it an 18. So because I think it is probably one of his better songs on this record, but please, lyrically, he's far from any sort of real lyrical genius, that's for sure.
Hey, Mark, when he says, so you just don't feel, it's a little pause before the next word in that sentence is
yeah,
betrayed.
but still, it doesn't matter when you read it though. It doesn't come that way.
Well, yeah, read it on this. It's not the same as listening to it.
Yeah, but, you know what I mean.
It's genius. Genius.
Don't believe everything you read.
Let's move on to the lead-off single from the album, Hide Your Heart. And this one scores pretty well across the board, except from Ken.
But which place are we now? This is number...
What, Hide Your Heart?
7, 8, Hide Your Heart. Where are we?
We're on the third song on the album. We're going sequentially, not by ranking.
Okay.
I'll give the overall ranking at the end, Dan.
Okay, that's how it
So,
goes.
Hide Your Heart.
He's so disappointed. Oh.
My turn. Is it my turn?
It's your turn because you
Go
gave
ahead.
us 18
Hide Your
points.
Heart. I gave a 16 overall. I think the lyrics are good. It's telling a story again. One of those kind of songs. And melody is good melody, pretty good melody. Not my favorite melody, but it's still pretty good. Taste is a 2 out of 3. I thought it was pretty good. It's obviously a good song, but it's not the greatest. Not Paul's best. So yeah, it's a pretty good. It's catchy to a degree. Do I want to hear it all the time? No, but it's good enough.
I gave it perfect marks, 30 out of 30.
What?
Yep.
Really?
Yep. I
Perfect.
really enjoyed this song.
Wow.
I still enjoy this song. Is it? And I'm going to use Daniel's optics, because when you look at all the 80s albums where Paul had these big, grand kind of, they're not power ballads as such, but they are grand kind of power songs. A Million to One, Who Wants to Be Lonely, Reason to Live. This is the least of them as well through the 1980s, but it's a really grand song that if it wasn't so cluttered by all the other versions that have been, kind of in the marketplace and had ever been able to stand alone on its own, I think it would be received, far better than it was. I'm glad I got to hear this live in concert in the latter years as well. So
this song's as good as Deuce, I guess. It's a perfect score.
No, on this album, this song is perfect.
Within the album.
On this album in 1989, it's perfect.
Okay.
I'm not measuring this against.
1989,
Yeah.
I don't know why people do that. Why would you? We're talking about this record. Why would you bring it outside? We're talking about ranking.
You have
these
to
songs,
think
man.
about the history and the.
No, you don't have to. Not when you're talking. No, not when you're
You
ranking a
do.
record. No, you
Daniel
don't.
just compared about lead-off songs.
I'm with Ken.
compared to other albums.
You can't compare just
say
to
that
the year.
this is
I agree with
this
him on
is a
that
perfect
either.
Song. You can't say
History.
that this is a perfect song as compared.
On
By
this
that
record,
measure,
yeah,
Ken,
on this record.
Deuce is thumbs up and Hide Your Heart is thumbs down. I mean, come on.
I can't. I would never give a perfect song unless it was really perfect.
You don't have to. This is my ranking. This is
I know
me.
it's your ranking, and I don't like it.
He's just saying you're wrong, and that's all.
We're all wrong. All right, Mark.
All right.
Well, I gave it not perfect, but close. I mean, lyrics, I gave it a 4. Music, I gave it a 4, and I gave it a 3 on taste, 24. I mean, it's to me, it's a very strong single from Paul. Like I said before, compared to the other versions of it that came out at this time, I think it's better. I think it's the best one of it. And on this record, it's probably one of the strongest songs on the whole record. So, and I still enjoy it. I still enjoy listening to this song. When I was listening to this record, it was one of the songs I was actually happy that came up when I was playing. So I think it's justified to give it that score.
All right. Daniel.
Yeah, even though it's a leftover from Crazy Nights, I think this is the best song on the album. So I think I gave it a pretty high score as well. It's just unfortunate that the other leftover from Crazy Nights didn't end up on Hot in the Shade. You know, Sword and Stone. They had a lot of good material from Paul, but somehow they felt that Read My Body was better than Sword and Stone. Or maybe that they sold Sword and Stone to some obscure group that made it. But
Like Bonfire.
yeah, but then you have Hide Your Heart being released by every band, you know, like 4 or 5 other bands. So that doesn't really, you know, make sense either. So they should have put on Sword and Stone on this album instead of Read My Body. But I still enjoy Hide Your Heart. I think it worked pretty well live, and I would say it's sort of a Thrills in the Night song for me. You know, Thrills in the Night from Animalize I enjoy as well. It's not a ballad, it's not a rock song, it's somewhere in between, and Paul is very good at writing those kind of songs. So this is a home run. I gave it 24 points.
Yeah. Lonnie likes it as well. All right, Lonnie?
Yeah, I do. I gave it 27. I mean, almost perfect score. I mean, it is really good. You know, the only notch I gave it is I didn't give it a perfect score for melody, but it's pretty darn good. Lyrics, I gave it a 5. It's so fun. It's a fun song to sing and kind of sing along to. And I'm with Julian when they pulled it out in 2014 when they toured. It was so refreshing to hear that and to hear something different and something from the non-makeup era. That we're gonna pull this out and play it. Like, oh, that's really fun. Like, I remember, like, my wife went with me to the show in Chicago. It was the first show I saw on that tour. I look at her and I feel like I got done with that song. And I was like, all right, we can go, because like I've seen what I wanted to see tonight. You know, it was so. I mean, obviously we didn't, but you know, it was just great to hear that song live, because it is really good and kind of a forgotten gem actually in their catalog. So I gave it 27 out of 30. I really enjoy it.
But you do think a lot about Bon Jovi when you hear this song.
But I like Bon Jovi. I don't.
Yeah,
mind
yeah.
Bon
I
Jovi.
also like Bon Jovi. It's not like he's inventing something new. He's kind of piggybacking on Bon Jovi, but there's nothing wrong with that.
At the time in 1989, I mean, what was really popular?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, again, they were taking inspiration from others, but at least in some of these cases, they were taking inspiration from a good source. I mean, Bon Jovi, 88 is good Bon Jovi. That's New Jersey era. You know, that's
good. That's good stuff.
And don't forget, there's also numerous songwriters too. You got Desmond Child and Holly Knight both on this song as well, right? So that's also the influence on it as well.
Right.
And the most commonly used name in all of rock, Johnny, has appeared in more songs in rock and roll than ever. Johnny is the name that's
good
on more songs in rock history. I that was an interesting factoid I found out.
Yeah, Mark's going to receive a visit from Tito now for not mentioning him.
Why do you hate
Tito? Let's go to a comment in the audience. Opal Archive had a really good question. Is this album bad just because it's long? Like, maybe it could have been a good album at a conventional length. Lonnie, what do you think on that?
I think our opinion of Hot in the Shade could have been a lot better had it been condensed to 10 songs. I think Hot in the Shade wouldn't get the bad rap that it gets had it been condensed down to 10 songs. But I think the extra just 5 songs on there that lengthen the album, it's just that if it was 10 songs, there'd be some we could call well, that song's a filler, that song's a filler. But you add 5 more songs of filler, it makes for a crappy album.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I think
Yeah, I agree 100%, because I mean, instead of having 7 crappy songs, you may only have 2 or 3. Right. So it's a lot easier to go through.
Yeah, go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, I think the whole problem is they couldn't grasp how to approach the CD era, because it was just in the beginning back in '89, and they just thought that, well, you're supposed to put in as much stuff as possible. That was obviously the wrong idea. They should have kept it much shorter, 10 songs, and I think it would have been a better album. But there's still the problem with the production. It doesn't sound great compared to Crazy Nights, that get a lot of, crap from sounding polished. At least it sounds pop. In a pop sense, it sounds good. But this album, it's the worst sounding Kiss album in the 80s, I think. And they should have done something with production, bringing in outside production. Of course, it costs money, and that was an issue. So maybe this was the best they could do at the time, but keep it to 10 songs.
Yeah, Ken.
You're muted.
You're muted.
Ken.
Classic.
Ken.
Oh my gosh, I did it again. Anyway,
You're doing it on purpose. I
what I'm
think.
doing here is I'm feeding the Sphinx some Ozempic because we need to trim the fat. Because
Wow.
it needs to be trimmed. That fat needs to go. So take your Ozempic. But anyway, yeah, it should have been condensed. You drop 3 Paul songs, 1 Gene song, and
Of course.
Boomerang, and yeah, and I think it's pretty good. At least it's better.
Yeah, it's difficult. They were trying to keep up with Def Leppard, 63-minute album, Tesla, great radio controversy, over an hour, Appetite for Destruction, 55 minutes, 53 minutes, something like that. Albums are getting longer, but all of those other albums had a reason to have that amount of length. This one, you lop 5 songs off it, and it's still not a very good album. It's still in a class similar to Animalize for me. It's just not a very strong album. The problems with it go more than just trimming the fat. It's like a lot of bad decisions are made in terms of song selection. We've mentioned some of the other songs from the period that probably should have been in there. Hide Your Heart probably should have been on a Paul solo release during his solo tour. Just to get it out there, and that would have beaten most of the others to the punch in having it out. Now, what would have happened if it had been a hit is a little bit more problematic. But Eyes of Love is mentioned by Ronnie Parker. There are better songs for Eric Carr and better compositions that he was creating at the time. You end up with Little Caesar as his vocal debut. So I just think the problems with this album are far more than just reducing it to 10 songs, because the bad songs, the amount of filler is still too great considering the amount of songs that they had cooking at the time. And there are other songs that were in the mix that could easily have been used as alternates. Let's get back to the song rankings, because we're now back to Uncle Gene and Loves a Slap in the Face. And I'm actually surprised this one didn't get the axe. So Ken, we better let Ken speak first, since it's a Gene song. Wait, you're going to give it 10 points. What the hell, Ken?
Am I on mute? Oh, no.
No.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, this is a decent Gene songs. It's just kind of drags for me, unfortunately. I mean, lyrics, again, it's the same kind of thing. Middle of the road lyrics for Gene. Melody is not a lot of good melody there. Not his best. And taste is a 2 out of 3, because if I give it a 3, that would have been like what I want to hear from Gene. But this is not really exactly what I want to hear from Gene. But he was in this period in the 80s, at least from Asylum through this album, where it's kind of a lot of the songs are sounding similar in a way, the way he's writing some of these songs. I know he had better material, but I don't know how these got on there. But it's okay. I mean, it's not the worst. It's pretty low for me, but it is what it is. I don't hate it. I won't skip it, but it's not his best material.
Well, it's reassuring that you didn't rank this the least of us. We'll get to that person shortly. Daniel.
Yeah, for me this is kind of middle of the road song, maybe a bit below that. But I actually have a fun story of this song, and I had a student way back, like 15, 20 years back, and I taught him how to play the guitar. And then 10 years later, he came back and he knew I was a huge Kiss fan. Of course, I told him, I started off teaching him Kiss songs. And his favorite album was Creatures of the Night. So I always thought that this is a brilliant guy. But then he told me, well, the Kiss song that has meant the most to me is actually this one that we're talking about. An obscure Honda Shade song. And I asked, why? Well, he went through some bad breakup in the early 20s. And this was a song he went to and listened to over and over again. So he loved this song. So even though it's not one of my favorites, I always think of that guy and that story. That even pretty bad songs can mean a lot to other people. So I don't think it's that bad, but nothing to write home about.
That's a really great reminder to everyone in the Kiss Army. That a song like Love's a Slap in the Face could be a fan's most meaningful Kiss song just because of context. And that's why there are no wrong answers. I love that, Danny. Great story. Lonnie.
No, I think that's great. I think different, it's a great example. Different songs mean different things to different people. And, everybody, something resonates with someone and stays with them, for forever, for a long time. And just
forever.
It's a terrible, should have used another word. I think love is slap in the face, though. I rank it less than I ended up with 12 points on it. Just not. I disagree with Daniel. Daniel said it's middle of the road, maybe a little bit below. I think it's below that. So it ends up with 12 because it's. At taste, I gave it a 2. I don't hate it, but it's okay. But so I actually Read My Body the same score was 12. So I guess I like it about the same as that. Not, but I said earlier, Read My Body is almost a kind of a guilty pleasure because it's so bad. But
yeah.
Keep It Greasy posted the singing na 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 na. That's really bad. It's so.
So you mean do is much better?
Yeah, and Hide Your Heart.
Or Yeah.
Hey.
Classic.
Okay.
Kiss.
Fair enough. But it's not a very good song, so I gave it 12.
I actually gave it 12 as well. So.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
I gave it 21.
Look at you.
Wow.
I like it. Yeah,
Proud of you.
I think it's a fun song, but it's undercooked. It's got a cool, melody. Lyrically, it's pretty cool, but the na 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 needs the finger snaps from I in it, it just needs that full treatment. No, I don't think this is as bad. I think it's a decent Gene song, but then again, he seemed to be putting more effort into the stuff he was doing with other groups at this time than his own band. And if some of those efforts were focused a little more on Kiss, I think Kiss would have benefited from a more invested Gene Simmons. Mark ranked this the lowest of us all. So Mark.
Well, I mean, I do appreciate the story that Daniel said about the song. It's nice to hear, but man, you could have picked a better song. Seriously, I mean, the song is terrible. No, I mean, look, I understand that sometimes it connects with people certain ways, and that's great, but man, there's such a vast catalog he could have picked to connect to. I even think Daniel believes that too, that he could have picked a better song than that. But I mean, musically, it's not that good, this song, and I know that it was brought up about the do 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 and all that stuff, but I've always viewed that as lazy songwriting. It's like when you can't think of a lyric, they just throw that in,
Like Hey Jude.
So
Jude, right? That was lazy.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it is kind of lazy. It is lazy songwriting if you can't think of the words in there, But it's whatever. I mean, this is Gene we're talking about. I'm not expecting, lyrical genius here, right?
No.
But this makes Betrayed, though, look a lot better after you read this. I mean, Betrayed is much stronger lyrically on here. So I just gave it a 2 for lyrics, 2.5 music, and 2 for taste. It's not, I don't hate it, but it's definitely not a song I would go back and repeat.
So we can't expect any na on the new Dark Monarchy.
No, you would
album?
never see me do that lyrically. Never. I'd rather be rather banging my head for 2 days against the wall to think of something than that.
Well,
That's just me.
you know what? Sometimes you don't choose the song chooses you. How about
Yeah.
that?
That's true.
Agreed.
Yeah, that is true.
There you go.
All right, so obviously the king of the album is Forever, the majestic Forever, and let's see, everyone's pretty much in the same ballpark here except for Daniel.
Yeah.
Daniel,
Well, I thought I gave it a pretty good score. The only problem for me is I don't like ballads. That's not my cup of tea. You know, I like metal songs or rockers or Deuce, Unholy. I've had enough into fire. Forever, I do understand it's a great song, maybe done almost to perfection, but it's still a ballad, and I don't listen to ballads over and over again. But I think I still gave it a pretty good score. I gave it 20 points, and I gave it 5 when it comes to melody, and 5 when it comes to lyrics. But it's just not my taste, so I gave it a 2 in taste, and that's why it ended up with 20 points. But still a great song.
yeah, you know, to a certain extent, while you may be going more for logs and fireplaces, you know, I think it's a great Paul song, but it is a bit precious. It's a bit overwrought, and it's just a little bit too, you know, it's like dial it back a little bit because you're a soppy little puppy here. So overwrought, and I think the drums really clash on this. I mean, I know we love the video, or many of us love the video and Eric playing, but you've got this really gentle, delicate, eloquent thing, and then there's the guy smashing the fuck out of his drum kit. I mean, it's a contrast. For me, though, Forever, and it's the England thing again, or Britain in the world, because it was a single. It was a 12-inch single. It was a really weird 12-inch single for the normal version, which I think had All American Man and the Oath as B-sides on it. But the Gatefold special edition was the introduction to me of B-sides officially released, because they had the Deuce and Strutter 73 demos on that Gatefold. It had a history of the group on it. It was just freaking awesome to a new fan like me at that stage. Yeah, I had the demos already, but here they were being properly released in what I assumed was the best sound quality possible, and compared to, say, you know, the bootlegs that they were coming on at the time. So that ties in with Forever for me. And it's just the memory of that time. But here's the introduction to the dark arts, the bootlegs, the demos, and all this history. So I gave it 27 points, but so did Lonnie.
Yeah, I gave it 27. It's, you know, almost. I didn't give anything 30 on this album. I couldn't give anything 30 off of Hot in the Shade, but I gave it 27. It's really good. I really enjoy it. You know, lyrics, I gave it a 5. I think it's very, very poetic. It's right on point. Melody just slightly below with a 4, and taste 3. I mean, I like it. 27 points. It's one of their better songs. It's too bad it never really got the attention after this tour. I mean, they played it on the Revenge tour.
Yeah.
And then the song was just buried. It never got any attention at all afterwards. I mean, they played it on Symphony, I guess, but I mean, okay. I mean, not even MTV Unplugged or anything got the song didn't get the treatment anywhere. So it's kind of a shame that it's because it is very good. It's kind of a shame it got buried.
But Lonnie, you often mention your beautiful wife. What does she think about this song? Because my girlfriend, she loves this song. She likes it. Yeah,
she likes it.
I think it's kind of a girly song.
It was in the mix for our first dance song, and we decided on something else. But it definitely was in the mix because she enjoys it.
Yeah, I think girls like this one.
Yeah,
Lonnie, I have a question for you as well.
Sure.
So you mentioned MTV Unplugged and how it was ignored. Would you sacrifice a precious song from Revenge every time I look at you for Forever?
Absolutely
Unplugged?
not. Absolutely not, because I think that version of Every Time I Look at You on MTV Unplugged is better than
it's
what better
freaking
was
next
on
level.
Retrospective. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely not.
That's a great
All right.
point, Julia. It should have been on Unplugged.
But you couldn't have Forever and Every Time I Look at You. I mean, that's just
They could have.
Bonus.
well, yeah, you
Because
could have.
they had I
European-
Still Love You.
European-
They could have
You
scrapped
could
I Still
have it
Love
as
You.
a
I Still Love
European
You.
bonus track.
I would have scrapped I Still
I'd
Love
like
You
that.
from Unplugged.
Paul sounds
European.
really good on "I Still Love You" though on MTV.
He sounds-
Oh, hell yeah.
He sounds
That's
fantastic. on that.
insane.
Yeah. God. Oh, all right. Let's.
We're not
let's
talking
get
about
back
that
to-
great album. We're talking about "Hot in the Shade" though.
Yeah, let's get back to reality of the moment. Mark, you also gave this 27 points along with Lonnie and me.
Yeah, I think it's a great song. I think I just did a job. I gave lyrics 4. I mean, they're great lyrics. I guess the only reason why I didn't give it a 5 is because there are, like Julian said, there are little moments in there where it's maybe a little syrupy. But I think
Yeah.
it's near perfect though, and musically I love it. And actually, that's the thing about this song that I actually liked. I kind of had a little smile there when Julian mentioned this, that I actually liked the drumming. I think that the drumming gave it a little bit of oomph in it, and maybe if it was a little bit more, if it would have made it, if he would have backed off a bit, and maybe it would have made it even a little bit more syrupy. I think this gave it a little bit more push to it. And I've always loved that little snare hit at the end when they do that. And he does that one snare out of nowhere near the end there, which I think is always perfect where he puts that in there. I thought Eric Carr had a good feel in this song. So hats off to Mr. Eric Carr on this song. So, but yeah, I agree with Lonnie too. I am not able to give any song on this album a perfect score, but this is probably the closest that I came.
Yeah, nice observation as well from the creator. That viewpoint that only you really have as someone who makes music about how the drums might offset an otherwise too syrupy song. Good point. Never thought about that. Who did I skip? Because I've lost track of some of these segues.
Me?
Well, I'm sorry, Ken. Please
Oh, that's
proceed.
all right.
There's a reason.
All right, so I wonder how much this song is, Michael Bolton, because he co-wrote
Everything according to Michael Bolton.
Yeah, and it might have been a lot of him, because that's the sappiness part, I think, of the song. But it's still a really good song. Lyrics, I gave it 3. Melody, 5, and the taste, 3. So I think it's my highest ranking song on this album at 24, which is lower than your guys's. But I'm a little bit more critical, I think, on the band. So yeah, it was the right song to have as a single, at least one of the right songs. So, and it did save them. It did save them, and probably saved the Hot in the Shade tour. So yeah, really good song.
Daniel, did I get your opinion for this one?
Yeah. Go to the next one.
Okay, well, there's nowhere to hide in a crowded room. Let's talk about Silver Spoon. Mark, you gave this a whopping score.
Yeah, actually, I this is one song that I used to think when I was when I put this CD in the car, I thought to myself, okay, now after Forever, we're going to get to the really weak stuff. But I was surprised. I don't know if something has changed since the last time I heard this album, but I actually kind of like this song. I actually think that Paul did a good job on this one. Musically, I like it. I mean, it's nothing amazingly inventive or anything, but it's pretty catchy. It's pretty upbeat. The lyrics are not as brutal as Paul can be sometimes in these kind of topics. And I actually found it kind of interesting that he had the kind of gospel singer women in the background on this, something that you don't really hear very often in a Kiss song. So something that was a little bit more inventive in a Kiss song. It didn't really bother me at all. I mean, okay, so lyrics I gave it 3.5. Music I gave it 4, and I gave it a 3 because I do like the song. I have to admit. I mean, maybe that wasn't the case before, but something must have changed, and I like it. It's definitely a good way I think they end the vinyl on this song. If my memory serves me, I think this is the last song on the vinyl, but on side A. But it would have been perfect to start side B. I thought it was that strong, so I like this song.
Yeah. Okay. It didn't really bother me. It doesn't sound like a stunning vote of confidence in the song. That's the sort of thing that you say after a colonoscopy. Ken, before I forget you, Silver Spoon.
You're muted, Ken.
I'm muted. Anyway, yeah, Silver Spoon. It's okay song. I gave it, pretty good for lyrics rating out of that one. Melody is middle of the road for me, and my taste is not my favorite type of Paul written song. So it's kind of low, middle to low 14 for me. It's one of my maybe least favorite kind of songs, excuse me, on the album. So yeah, excuse me, doesn't do much for me, unfortunately. Unlike Mark, who I think likes it a lot more than I do. So
it does so little for Daniel. He just walked off when I was about to go to him. So Lonnie, I believe you ranked this the least of all of us. It's not a hit for you.
Gave it an 8.
wow.
Lyrics are a 2. I think it's just too cheesy and it's too cheesy and it's just bad. It just doesn't resonate at all. I mean, I can't give it a 3 and saying it's above average. I can't do it. And melody, it seems unfinished. It seems like one of those songs that's kind of unfinished in my opinion. Melody wise, like they had an idea with it and we just kind of went with it. And I gave it a 2 for taste, because I guess it's okay. I didn't give it a 1 and say I hate it, because I don't hate it. I think there's some interesting parts to it. I think the gospel singers, like Mark brought up, is kind of an interesting little twist in the middle of it. I don't hate it, but it still just gets an 8 for me, because it's not very good. It's definitely filler. I'm actually surprised that it's not one of the songs that got taken off the top.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with you on that. I'm very surprised that it made it this far. I mocked in the intro the lyric "Nowhere to hide in a crowded room." I mean, Paul was still doing lyrics like that and "Live to Win." It's just, and the subject matter is weird. The chorus, I just think, is dreadful. I still gave it 14 points because it's still kind of catchy. And come on, Kiss songs aren't exactly, well, Kiss songs are Kiss songs. So it's still not horrendous. Daniel, I was about to go to you when you walked out. Silver Spoon. Now you're muted.
You're muted.
Ha ha.
Oh, not just me.
And now he's stuck on mute.
That's a first. Okay,
There
sorry
you go.
about that. That's a first. Ken has the record like 50. Okay, but Silver Spoon. I think it's, as some of you guys said, it's kind of catchy, and I do enjoy the female singing the chorus. It's kind of a throwback to "Move On" from his solo album. Or one of the songs on Ace Frehley's album. I remember they brought in some girls singing on the chorus. So that was a sort of a cool thing to do. But other than that, nothing really stand out from this song. 10 points. It's okay. Nothing to listen to twice. I think once enough.
Yeah, and that may be the problem with a lot of these. Too many Vinnie Poncia co-writes, maybe for one album, and they all come from the same kind of direction. Moving on to another Paul song, "King of Hearts," and I'm going to get mine out of the way immediately because I gave this 24 points.
Ooh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Doing.
Yeah, King of Hearts, I've actually always enjoyed as a song, and I think it's too good for Hot in the Shade. And this is a song that should have been shopped to another band to record. Um, it's a guilty pleasure. Oh, what can I say? I like the lyrics, I like the melody, I like the song. So after just kind of dogging on Silver Spoon, another song in a very similar vein I like. So it just shows how hit and miss tastes are, how one song can work for you and another one doesn't. Daniel, you also
Yeah,
kind of like it.
yeah, I kind of like this one, King of Hearts. The only downer I think is on the chorus. I like the way Paul sings. Well, I'm the king. You know, he has strong vocals, but in the background you can hear the guy singing something, and that doesn't really work. So there's a problem with the chorus. It could have been so strong, but they added this background vocals that, for me, they don't work at all. I like the guitars. It's a up-tempo song. Classic Paul, sounds like something cool off of maybe Crazy Nights or something like that. And the point you said about shopping it around to another band, that could have been great. But I'm glad it's on the record. But it could have been a bit better. But I gave it 15 points, and I still enjoy it.
Yeah. Lonnie.
I ranked it pretty low. I don't enjoy King of Hearts. I think it's super cheesy, as just as much as Silver Spoon was. I clicked off of it here. I ended up giving it King of Hearts. I gave it 10 points. Not very much at all. I gave it melody. I gave it a 3. The lyrics just ruin it for me. The lyrics on a lot of these songs just ruin it for me. I gave it a 2. I can't give it above average ranking for the lyrics because I think they're lazy and they're too cheesy, and the lyrics just ruin these songs for me. I ended up giving it a 2 for taste. It's middle of the road. I don't hate it. I mean, there's a lot worse Kiss songs out there than this one, but so the math just comes out to a 10 because I think the lyrics just ruin a lot of these songs. They really do, because they're just ideas that we just went with and didn't really refine to drum them up and make them just acceptable songs. They're just mediocre at best.
Mark, you also give it 10 points, like Lonnie.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I was mentioning earlier how when we get to the back half, this is where it starts getting really tiresome. And this is a great example of it. When King of Hearts started, I didn't remember this song when it first came on. I was like, oh, and I had high hopes because that riff at the beginning was kind of cool, like that din 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 din, and the guitar thing that he did. I was like, oh, this is starting out promising. But then as soon as he kicks in, and that opening line, I got to agree with Lonnie though. She was just 19. I'm like, oh no, here we go. This is as soon as they start with a lyric like this,
So
you know
bad.
it's going down the toilet quickly with the lyrics. You know, like
At least she's not 16.
well, yeah, but just before that, we had a lyric with Cadillac Dream when I was 17. Now he's talking about a girl's 19 now, and like they really love this age thing. Yeah, they're really high on this age. You know,
He's thinking back to when he was.
I don't care, but I just say that the whole thing with this is that the lyrics are just pretty weak. I mean, lyrically, I gave it a 2.5. I was a little bit more generous than Lonnie was. And musically, I did the same thing. I mean, I gave it maybe the half point because of that opening guitar riff, because I actually do like that. But the rest of the song is just, as you would say, it seems phoned in. You know, that's very, very rushed. I agree with Lonnie 150% with this one, so I only gave it a 10 as well.
I wasn't
All right,
aware we could give it health points. Is that a way of voting?
Yeah, of course you can.
It's like
Okay,
Ken,
that's
it's
good
like
to
Ken
know.
issuing out ties, so why not?
It's
Yeah.
nice. Okay.
I only
Yeah,
did
you
it.
said I couldn't do
Great.
that.
Yeah, just to help Ken out. So if he's
You said I
ever
can't do that.
between 2 points, he's got a
Jeez.
half point he can go to. All right, Ken, you like this the least of us, so I'm giving you plenty of time.
Yeah,
to
and I
think
gave it
about your
even a
thoughts
better
and explaining
lyrics
why.
than you guys, rating. But the melody, I don't like it. I really can't stand that lead into the chorus. That lead in's like, it's just so annoying to me.
Never needed anybody.
No, before that. Anyway, it's Yeah, I don't know. I just can't.
That's
stand
Silver
it.
Spoon you were singing, actually.
Silver Spoon too. Yeah.
No, that's sorry about
Oh, he's got the wrong song.
They're pretty similar. Ken, why don't you sing the part
Just
that you
another
don't
crappy
like?
song on the another crappy Paul song.
No, it's the part where they say, what's the lyric here? For instance, and, and when she tells me I want it, I go crazy. I need it. When she
tells me,
It sounds like a
I
little
got it.
kid.
So bad.
Face, and I was like, no, I don't like that. And so the taste is a 1 for me on this. Just
Wow.
I don't like it. That's not what I want to hear from Paul. Not at all. So I only got a 6.
Ooh,
Yeah.
It's forced. This song is really forced. Yeah.
Well, I think it's the best Vinnie Poncia Paul Stanley collaboration on the album, actually. But
I think I agree with that.
let's move on to a song that Ken can be positive about. The Street
song.
Giveth and the Street Taketh Away. So take us away, Ken. You ranked it quite well, 15. That's pretty good for this album.
Yeah, I mean, it's excuse me, it's not that high, but the lyrics are not the greatest on that one for me. Though Gene's not his best lyrics, but melody, it's middle of the road, pretty good. And for my taste, it sounds like a kind of the Gene kind of song I want to hear. So I gave it a 3 on that. So it's 15. It's not a high ranked song by any means. But I do enjoy it enough to, keep it on and keep it going. So,
Well, let's go to Mark, who gave this a whopping 4 points.
ouch,
This song,
4.
man.
this song is utter Trek. It's garbage. This thing should be skewered and shot with a shotgun 7 times. It's terrible. This song. The lyrics are this is like Gene at his worst lyric writing. I mean, hey man, gotta take a stand. So you think you've been had? I'm here to bet ya. Street's gonna get ya. Well, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Ripoff. Hey man, it's gonna get out of hand. Cross your heart and hope you die. That is so tacky and cheesy and shit. Okay, I mean honestly, my nephew could write better lyrics than that. And musically, this is nothing to write home about. I gave it a 1.5 lyrics, 2.5 music, and 1 on taste. This is exactly what I was talking about when the back end of this record is terrible. And this is a great example of it.
Lonnie, let's see if you can ram home the point of why you don't like the song.
Mark and I are in lockstep with a lot of these crappy songs on Hot in the Shade. I gave it a 4 as well. I think the lyrics are super lazy. It's super bad. Mark read enough of them. I don't need to quote them anymore because they are terrible. And melody, I gave it a 2 also. I guess back to the lyrics though, real quick though. The street giveth and the street gaveth away. It is a perfect Gene song of, oh, he likes a title, so I'm just gonna go with it and use it, and the rest of the song will just write itself. And it's pretty much what it is. So the song ends up with a 4 because it's so lazy. Like, oh, it's a cool title, I like it. These lyrics are crap, but who cares? I was gonna throw them in there anyway. And this is what you get is one of the weaker songs, not only on this album, but one of the weaker songs in the Kiss catalog. The song's terrible.
B-side on the Forever single.
Say that way, it's still crap. I don't care if it's a B-side.
Is that supposed to improve it or?
It's just an observation. Daniel, you gave this a little bit more points than Mark and Lonnie. Actually, if you added theirs together, you gave it 8 points.
Yeah, but I do have to agree with both Mark and Lonnie. To me, this is a subpar song. But I still enjoy Gene's vocals. I still enjoy him singing at the top of his lungs. I like the way he sounds through the song, but it's still not a good song. I gave it 2 for lyrics, 2 for melody, and 2 for taste. And that equals 8 points. And that's the second lowest score I gave any song on this album, so it's not a favorite of mine either.
I gave it 30 points.
Wow!
Oh Lord!
No, you didn't.
Let's hear this.
You lying.
Did I love this song? I
30
always
points?
this is for this album. We're not measuring it against Deuce. I thought
No, but
we'd
even
already made
still,
it
for
there.
for this album, like really,
You have a different way of measuring things.
This
Listen,
song
Hide Your
is
Heart.
Kid has this song like right after Deuce. These songs are great.
No, this one it is
See?
right up there for me with Hide Your Heart. This is Gene's best song on the album for me. I love his singing and his vocal delivery to the point where it masks some of the shortcomings of the lyrics. But I do like the story that he's trying to kind of tell. I think melody-wise, it's a really good song. As well, and I like it. It's again, I have no embarrassment of saying that I really like the song. This would be on a greatest hits from that era of the 80s for me, because again, for this album compared with the rest of the albums or the rest of the songs and Gene's compositions on this album, I am so happy to give this 30 points because so much of his other stuff is just complete drivel.
So, Julian, do you mean we have to give the highest point to a song on every album? I'm comparing it to every other album.
I am only comparing this to Hot in the Shade, and that is the only context which I'm actually looking at it. Everyone's looking at it their own way.
Yeah,
there is no
that's
one
true.
way. It's just like rank the songs and the albums however you want, because as long as you can explain the context and explain why you give it a score, we're not all going to look at it through the same prism. It's impossible. We're Kiss fans. We will have changed our minds in 5 minutes about this. I mean, this, I might be giving this 4 points in 3 minutes. It doesn't matter. But in the moment that I'm listening to it and doing the scores, I'm like, this is a really good song. And,
Interesting.
there you go.
interesting.
Let's move on.
Yeah, it's very
To
interesting.
another Gene song, Somewhere Between Heaven and Hell. Again, that made it through the culling of the bottom 5. Before Mark chokes to death on thinking about how he's going to justify 2 points.
Oh Lord! What?
Oh my God.
This I don't know what they were thinking putting this on there. Again, another bad acoustic guitar introduction here. And again, the lyrics, come on, man. I mean, really, I have to do it. Okay. I'd have to be a mind reader, baby, just to know what's going on. You don't need no crystal ball sugar. That's unlikely for Gene to say something like that. Can't you see my love is strong? Like, that is so, like, grade 2 songwriting. Again, this is like, come on, man. This is terrible, man. And the music is not even good. Like, again, like, we had the acoustic guitar thing at the top of the album. Now it's returned again, and maybe Gene's like, I'll show Paul how to do an acoustic beginning. Let me do one, And it's not good. This song is just, it also doesn't help that by this point in the album, I'm already like, when is this album going to end? Like, I'm already so fed up with it that when anything weak comes at this point, it just seems even worse. I mean, if this song was maybe earlier in the album, maybe I wouldn't have gave it as bad because I wouldn't have been so already desperate for it to end. But it's at this point where I'm like, I just want this to be over.
I'm sure our listeners are saying that as well. So, Lonnie.
Good Lord, how long are these idiots going to talk about a crappy Kiss album?
Yeah. Forever.
At least an hour and 45 minutes. But I ended up giving it 10 points because it's lazy, it's bad. Somehow I gave the lyrics a 3, which after Mark reading some of that, is maybe a mistake. But I think Somewhere Between Heaven and Hell is a lot like The Street Giveth, where I think Gene likes the name of a song and we're going to go with it again.
Yeah.
And that's just going to be the title, and the rest will kind of just write itself type thing. It's very similar in my opinion to it. I know I'm offending Julian with his 30 points to The Street Giveth, but I'm with Mark that by the time you get to this song, you're just like, okay, how much more is there on of this? Because they all kind of run together, and it's just more just just bad output
Yeah.
from the band at this
Yeah.
point. It's just it ends up with 10 for me because it's just not very good. Sorry.
Ken.
Yeah, I gave it an 18.
Look at you.
Yeah, the lyrics are alright. I mean, they're not, it's been a lot worse. So I give it 3 on that. Melody, I like the riff in it. Is really what I think saves it for me, at least. I like the riff in it a lot, so that's what happened there. As far as taste, I think it's a decent Gene song. I gave it a 3 out of 3 on that. So it got an 18, but it's not a perfect score. It's a little above average. I enjoy it. I enjoy that song.
Yeah, a little above average for Gene on this album.
Hmm.
Daniel, you like this the most of us.
Yeah, that's a bit of a surprise. I'm with Ken. I do like the riff in the song, but I also like the lyrics to some extent because I think he's actually, and this is not very common for Gene, he's able to tell a story, the feeling when you're approaching a girl trying to, make her like you and you're not really sure, does she like me or will she ditch me or what will happen, so you're somewhere between heaven and hell. And when I put on this record, I didn't put it on, I listened to Spotify, but this time around, this was one of the few songs outside of the singles that I remembered the chorus perfectly, because I think the chorus is great. And the singing from Gene throughout this song is beautiful. So this is actually one of my favorite Gene songs on the album, and I do like, playing this song and singing it. It's a cool song. Unfortunately, the production doesn't do it justice, of course, but I think it's a strong chorus, it's a strong riff, and strong vocals from Gene. So I actually gave it 21 points.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't give this
Wow.
one 30 points, guys. I think it's pure filler. But there's a few
That's
few
wrong.
elements. No, there's few elements in it that I do think stand out. I like the drums and percussion on it. I think it's got a really good solo. But the rest of it doesn't do a whole lot for me in terms of its tone and its energy, lyrically and vocally. So music wise, I think it was on the right track as a starting point, but again, like many things, it's undercooked, not refined, not shaped, just a bit too raw. So I gave it 12 points, which brings us to the final song that we're going to talk about. All Hail Little Caesar. And it's tough to balance the emotion of someone who is gone, someone who died young, with this being the song that he was allowed to make his lead vocal debut with, because I think there's just so many better Eric Carr songs,
Yeah.
and this is what we got, and he got. I think his vocals really good on it for what he's singing, the energy, the attitude is good. Musically, the track's okay, but it's just nothing's. It's Eric Carr's lead vocal debut on an album. I kind of had always hoped it would be much more special than it was. And again, in 1989, I wasn't able to compare it with, any of the Rockhead stuff that he was doing, any of the other demos that he was submitting to the group. So in 1989, I liked it just fine because it's like, hey, there's Eric Carr singing. So I gave it 18 points. Lonnie, you don't rank it whatsoever.
I
Wow.
don't. I don't think it's very good at all. I ended up giving it 3 points. I like Eric Carr, but I think it's a bad song. I don't think it's very thought out. I like the demo actually of Ain't That
Ain't That
Peculiar
Peculiar.
better than Little Caesar. I wish I would have left it alone and left it at that, because it doesn't do anything for me. And I like Eric Carr, and it's hard to do that because it is the only real lead that we got from him. But it's not good, and it's a shame that's the turned out to be the only Eric lead that we got.
Yeah, and they couldn't leave it as Ain't That Peculiar because that's a cover. He didn't write those lyrics, which really sucks. And then it was no one messing with it. This song went through so many versions to end up like that. Mark, you gave it 10 points. That's decent.
Yeah, I mean, but my thinking is along the same tracks as Lonnie with this. It's not really a very strong song, but there's a lot of emotion in the sense that I did like Eric Carr very much as a drummer, and I thought he was a pretty integral person in the band. So a lot of that is where it probably elevated his numbers a bit. I mean, I only gave it 2.5, 2.5, and 2 to make it a 10. But I think a lot of that was because, again, you kind of want to, say nice try, Eric. Because you the only thing that we got from him on record is this, and you feel bad almost shitting on it because of that. But it's not a great song. It's essentially just an 12-bar blues sort of written song. So there's nothing really, they could have did so much more. Like we said, there were so many other songs he's done, Eyes of Love and all these other tunes that are much stronger that they could have used, but we got this instead. But, at least I gave him a 10. I mean, it could have been worse, right?
Yeah, Daniel also gave him a 10.
Yeah, I think this is actually another victim of Kiss trying to be so street. Little Caesar for me is a 30s movie about a gangster, kind of a classic movie from the 30s, Little Caesar. Eric Carr sure as hell was no gangster, and he had a lot of songs that were way better. I think that Eyes of Love, wasn't that 87 or something? Eyes of Love? Yeah, I think it was 87, and that's a way, way better song. And I'm thinking Paul might recognize that as a good song, and seeing Little Caesar as a bit of a subpar song. Well, you can sing this one. No one will care about this song. So it's a bit of a subpar song, but I think it was great that Eric got his lead vocals on an original song. He previously did that Beth cover on 88, and I guess that was Paul's way of getting at Peter Criss. So we don't know the behind the scenes actions, but at times it feels like Paul is calling the shots, and unfortunately he's making a few bad calls, and this was one of them. He should have had Eyes of Love on the album.
Yeah, and don't forget that there were problems with Eric in the band at this time.
Yeah, for sure.
He'd been deeply unhappy. Yeah, no, he'd been deeply unhappy by Paul Solotal and Eric Singer coming into the picture. Mm-hmm. He was kind of stretching at the bounds. His contract was up for renewal as well.
Hell yeah.
So
he was nervous. And Bruce often recalls, he at times had a hard time dealing with Eric Carr because he was kind of bitchy, He felt he deserved more. He couldn't comply with him being a hired gun, as Bruce did.
Yeah,
so
he
that was always a problem.
Yeah, he always knew what he was by the terms of the contract that he signed in 1980 and renewed in 85 and was renewing here as well. But the contract renewal in 89, not signed until 1990, is actually interesting because it reduced the amount of notice that they had to give him if he was going to get fired. Okay. So it's kind of telegraphing some changes that were a reaction to him also becoming increasingly unhappy. He wasn't able to do outside work. He hadn't been allowed to play on Ace's album in 89. Yes. Yeah. He had his Rockhead stuff that had been, allowed to proceed, but he had to have permission for everything. And, he was growing, and it was now becoming more restrictive. And he was also a guy who was deeply emotional and would go into a negative funk. And around Paul is never good. He's still your employer, and he's able, and he's the king of petty. So
I think it's kind of reminiscent of the way Jason Newsted was treated in Metallica, because he wanted to, record albums, and James Hetfield told him, you can't record with other groups. but he went the other way. He said, "Well, then I quit," and he ended his tenure in the band.
Yeah, but Newstead had failed the test as well. I mean, if you think of And Justice for All and the lack of bass, if he'd stuck his foot down and said, "What the fuck? You've hired a bassist, and then now you're muting me out," he showed no balls at that moment. For whatever reason, I don't know enough. I don't follow that group's history as much, but I've always felt that if he had such a problem with there being no bass on And Justice for All, he should have been putting his foot down, because he sure as fuck was playing good bass on Garage Days Revisited and live.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, but the first studio album in, and he's not standing up for himself and establishing himself in the hierarchy. Eric Carr had established himself, but the hierarchy was defined by his contract. So this is a whole separate thing. We got to get to Ken and wrap this show up before everyone falls asleep from Hot in the Shade.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, Little Caesar. It's unfortunate that this is the song that was chosen to be his, key solo song on an album.
Swan song.
Yeah, it is kind of a swan song. Lyrics okay, melodies all right, not bad. But my taste is just the middle of the road on that one. So I gave it 12. I don't hate it, but it's an okay song. It's kind of just there. It's not bad. It's not great. It's just okay. It's unfortunate that they didn't use another one of his songs. So
yeah,
there you have.
Well, that's the rankings on the songs. Let's wrap with overall scores from each of the participants. Let's see. In last place with the lowest score for Hot in the Shade, Lonnie, 191 is your scores added up, followed by Mark at 193.5. You sound like a radio station, Mark. And then Daniel at 194, and then it jumps forward into positive zone. And Ken on 210 points, and me on a whopping 287. I clearly needed.
You like it.
Yo.
Hey, in Singapore, I loved it. It made me very happy because, again, you have to remember how much I did not like Crazy Nights and how this was a reversion to that. And I think a lot of that has carried through to this day, that the songs I like, I really like, because obviously I was the only one throwing 30 points at any songs today, making some of you gasp. So it really was one of those things. Let's do the rankings of the songs from the panel. And let me just find where my mouse is, because I have stretched this window. Microsoft, you suck. Stop fucking with my computer. All right, so rankings from least to greatest on the album.
Yeah.
Boomerang in 15th spot on 17.5. Read My Body on 28.5. You Love Me to Hate You on 37.5. Cadillac Dreams on 48.5. Prisoner of Love on 53. And that was in a tie with Little Caesar, also on 53, but Caesar stayed in. The Street Giveth, 61 points. Somewhere Between Heaven and Hell, 63 points. Love's a Slap in the Face, 64 points. King of Hearts, 65 points. Silver Spoon, 68.5. And that just shows, those 61 to 68 Street, Somewhere Between Heaven and Hell, Love's a Slap, that is filler. That is just middle of the road. Mm-hmm. Shockingly, on 78 points, Betrayed. Rise to It on 97 points. And then the two obvious is like Captain Obvious going to make the announcements. Hide Your Heart is on 123 and Forever on 125. That means this panel's favorite song on Hot in the Shade is Forever. It's probably going to be pretty similar for most fans. And if it wasn't, then Hide Your Heart's right there as well within 2 points. So it's very interesting to look back on this. Is anyone surprised by any of the results today, Daniel?
Not really, but I would like to see how it compares with the other albums we've ranked, because we've ranked a few albums now.
We have indeed, and I have that math for you right now. Would you like to know how it compares?
I would like to know that. I'm a stats
I can't
guy.
hear you people. Would you really like to know how it compares?
Yay!
Okay. All right. So compared with the other albums that we've done refocused episodes on this year and last year, I've redone the formula to come up with a score because it wasn't making any sense and I couldn't remember the formula that I was using, so I had to redo it. So the first refocused was on the Kiss album. It scored a cumulative ranking score of 24.67. Dynasty cumulatively drops down to 23.67. Sonic Boom drops down to 19.45. Animalize, 18.16. And then Hot in the Shade comes in at the bottom, not surprisingly, 14.34. So we're starting to establish a mass trend for what are good scores. I would say anything over 20 is a pretty consistently liked album. Anything under, well, Animalize 18 and below is probably not very good in terms of the overall ranking of the album. So,
yeah,
Cool.
Lonnie, what do you think of today? Anything surprise you or shock you?
No, I don't think so. I think that well, some of your rankings surprised me, Julian. But I mean,
blame the jet lag,
right? But I think that overall, no. I think that it kind of fell in line with what I thought it was. How the album is what it is, and it kind of it doesn't surprise me at all how it felt, how the cards folded.
Mark, last thoughts?
Yeah, I think nothing was unpredictable here, except a couple of your votes. But that's it. Other than that, everything else was no. I mean, I didn't expect the 30s, to be honest. But I mean,
I think you need to go back and listen to those songs again, Mark. Really, have another spin of Hot in the Shade and get back to me.
No.
Especially the Gene songs.
Ken.
Yeah, I mean, it's always, this album's kind of ranked lower on my list anyway of all their albums, so it's nothing really surprises me on the the rankings of a lot of the songs on this album. There is obviously a few good ones, real good ones on it, but most of it is, like I think Julian said, it's a lot of filler, unfortunately.
Yep, I'm happy the album exists. I'm happy that I got to revisit it with purpose and meaning. I'm not in any rush to go and listen to this album again. I think I need to purge my system with a bit of rock and roll over, revenge.
Hotter Than Hell.
Of the night. Yeah, well, next week we'll be refocusing in on Hotter Than Hell. It's a much shorter album. It's a classic album celebrating 50 years. So we'll hope you'll be able to join us again. But for now, for everyone who's chimed in with comments during this episode, this long episode, 2 hours, thank you very much for joining us, and we shall see you next time. Thank you for spending time listening to the KissFAQ podcast today. All sales are final. There are no refunds. If you'd like, look us up on Facebook or come over to the KissFAQ message board and discuss the topic we've broadcast today. Don't forget to rate us on iTunes, Spreaker, or wherever you've listened to the show. We hope you'll join us again.